Hey everyone, I'm Curtis Garrison, and I'm a Boy Scout bankruptcy claimant, and I'm an IRO claim, which is a independent review option. And long story short, in that, it's where you have a day in a court, but no jury, with the judge, and he's a neutral, and then it's my attorneys with the insurance attorneys or representatives, and this is Lee West. I'll let you take over and introduce yourself if you like. If you like.
Hi, my name's Lee West, and I am a Boy Scout survivor out of Texas myself. I started out in this situation with the bankruptcy after clicking on a Facebook ad that said, "Do you want to hold your abuser accountable?" And I clicked yes. My case got interviewed. Um, I don't know exactly the firm that I went through first. I don't remember their name, but Andrew Van Arsdale ended up buying my case. He and I had extensive conversations both on the phone, email, and text. And I asked him to object to several things. He didn't. I fired him in 2023, and I have been representing myself since. I have read over 13,000 documents in the first bankruptcy alone, probably another 300 in the second. Um, Pro se means I represent myself. I have the same authority as an attorney, but actually more rights because I don't have an attorney. The issue with communication from the trust has been my stalwart. I haven't stopped trying to require the trust to communicate with everybody because they do a piss poor job of it, almost to a criminally negligent level. And my goal, I have a website called bsavictims.org, and I post information there that I would want to know if I wasn't keeping up with this. Um, my experience in the courtroom, I have been an expert witness in federal cases. I have helped several victims navigate the legal system and have successful outcomes in their cases. But I'm not a lawyer and I do not give or offer any legal advice, and nothing in this video should be construed as legal advice. That's that's a good intro for me.
Great, and I appreciate that. And your website, bsavictims.org, is very much part of why I've interacted with you occasionally and seen some articles. And we will cover an article with as a call to action on the recent U.S. trustee um, um, activity, how else to put it, but it's interesting.
How did you
And
find that article? How did you find that latest post or motion filed?
the motion, his, not your post on it, but the motion file actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came out because we're just working with a team of attorneys, and we get notified different. It's not consistent, and there's notifications or people that get updates. And really, it was more of a probably because of an email blast. It's like they send some attorneys, like, here's an update. And but like I said, it's not consistent. I'm if you're on the other website that's important is Omni Agent Solutions. That's where people should know, and you've emphasized this very well, that those are sources for information from the source, where they track the Boy Scout documents and stuff. And I don't know if you want to add to that more, but the thing is they haven't had notifications, even if you subscribe to be notified after the, I don't know what the dead,
20
they just said.
uh, April 19th, 2023 is the last notification I got from the court.
Right. And it's horrible because there's so much critical information and activity and updates that nobody's getting. You got to go check like every day and multiple times, maybe, if it's really urgent updates and stuff.
So let me expound on that a little bit if you don't mind,
Sure.
Curtis,
Great.
and why it's important to know how to navigate the OmniDocs docket. So we've got two cases that we're in right now. One of them has been closed because it went through all of the appeals process, but there's over 13,000 motions filed in that case with the average page size of 40 pages. So there's over 1 million pages in our former bankruptcy that's already been closed. but we still reference it in the new bankruptcy, which is BSA Delaware LLC. They came up with a shell company, no employees, no payroll. It's strictly to move assets from venue to venue. And so the reason to stay up on OmniDocs is that's where day to day, up to date, it is the court's docket. And so the only place we have access to, because there's a paywall on the Supreme Court or the Delaware Bankruptcy Court, we would have to pay money to access it, Pacer. And not everybody has access. And a shout out to any of the homies that are in jail. They have never had access to any of this. I've been to jail and tried to look up OmniDocs. If they have a law library, that you can't, there's no internet. If you have a tablet, there's no internet for OmniDocs, and their law library in jail is just pathetic. And that actually brings me to a really important point, if you don't mind me mentioning it. We're doing a call to action. We're leading up to how we got there, but there are probably about, I want to say, 10,000 Boy Scout survivors that have been in jail over the last 6.5 years, that they don't receive notifications. They don't get calls from any lawyers or updates. They can't access any of the Zoom meetings. They can't access anything, yet they get mail, or let's say a survey in a mail call or an update from their attorney, and everybody in the pod knows about it. And the news says that there's Boy Scouts getting millions. They think that the people who are in jail that are going through this, we have been put in compromising positions because there isn't a proper chain of custody on legal documents. There's no privacy, there's no access. So, like, among other things, I want to advocate for those victims who have been in jail and had no privilege to any of this. And the reason I know that is because in the docket that I'm talking about, if you type in the word redacted, you'll see all of our letters into the judge. And throughout this time span, there's 2,000 of those documents that have been sent in, and almost all of them are, I've never heard from my attorney. I'm in jail. Can you give me an update? When am I going to get paid? How come it's not going to be enough? Like, and this is all stuff that an attorney should have taken care of, and that's kind of what's leading us up to this call to action, because the trustee, U.S. trustee, not the BSA trust, the U.S. trustee's office is trying to investigate reports of no communication to survivors, us, the creditor. The trustee has a direct obligation to fulfill certain things to the creditors. We're all creditors. All of us survivors are creditors. I'm a different type of creditor than Curtis is because he's an IRO. And what is an IRO again, Curtis?
Independent review option. Basically, they just do more extensive reviewing your case. The details we get a
And
day
how
in
much did you
court.
have to pay for that?
That was $10,000 to apply, and then once you're approved, it's $10,000 to have the judge file a recommendation.
So you paid 20 grand to actually have somebody able to look at your criminal case.
Yeah, at our bankruptcy claim, yes.
Right. Oh, yeah, you're right.
That's okay. Some people don't know
I'm
there's a
trying not to
difference.
conflate.
Right.
Right. I'm trying not to conflate, but I want everybody who's listening to understand
Having
childhood
to
sexual
pay.
assault is a crime.
Right.
Bankruptcy is not a criminal court. We
Thank you.
were we were dismissed from our rights
Yep.
to access a criminal court through this
Yep.
bankruptcy process,
Right.
and it was a horrible re-raping process. I haven't talked to anybody who has said, "Oh, this was great. I got healing out of this. I'm able to go on with my life." Because now most of us regret even participating in something that was so hurtful, with the
Right.
thought of, oh, maybe I can, get my life together if I get, $500,000 or something.
Right.
But we're talking about, I was awarded 2.8 million. I'll never see that because I'm a pro se individual and the trust won't tell me how many times my abuser abused others, although I have proof of him abusing 16 others. I'm only going to see 1.7 million of it. I've already received 4.7 percent of that, and that's only $86,000. And there is no mention, there's no hint, there isn't even a schedule of if there's ever going to be any more money.
Right.
And we're hearing that people who are going to file in the future are going to be able to be fast tracked to straight to the process, and they won't have to go through 6.5 years of anything.
Right.
So
Right.
the things that were promised to us, when I clicked on that button, do you want to hold your abuser accountable? Nothing like that has happened. So
Right.
not only was it false advertising, this fraudulent plan and bankruptcy process, and now the bad faith lawsuits that prove it down in
Yep.
Texas.
Yep.
I, I don't understand how this isn't re-victimizing survivors. I
100%.
want to graduate a victim to a survivor, and I can't with this process.
Right. And just having accountability and some form of justice, and that's having where they promised way at the beginning that we were going to be fair and equitable and paid in full. And that's a really bad problem because even their BSA bankruptcy compensation calculator was saying something like X amount to X amount on a certain tier, based on the kind of abuse you had.
Yep.
And the calculator was considering what state you were in. So they had statute of limitations, which you and I don't believe
Yep.
it should have been ever considered because it's a federal bankruptcy and statute of limitations. It's not fair and equitable because if you have the same thing happen in two different states, it could be 10% or 100%. It's horrible. That's not
Yeah,
fair at
this
all.
is this is federal bankruptcy court, so federal laws are applicable in the surrounding cell of this issue. And
Right.
so, we've got federal crime victims' rights. I'm gonna click on my screen real quick to
Great.
pull it up so that I cite it correctly. Um, the 18 U.S. Code 3771, crime victims' rights. It reads A, rights of crime victims. A crime victim has the following rights: the right to be reasonably protected from the accused, the right to reasonable, accurate, and timely notice. And that's important, I believe, because we haven't received any of that from attorneys or trust or bankruptcy court. Accurate, accurate and timely notice of any public court proceeding or any parole proceeding involving I don't know why my computer needs to update right now.
Oh no. Um, it's
Why?
always at the bad timing. Um,
It's not even Tuesday. But anyway, so
okay.
essentially, number three says the right to not be excluded from any such public court hearing. And that is just basic rights that the bankruptcy court doesn't come anywhere close to providing for. Not only that, there's never been a day in any court where I've gotten to tell my accuser, or the court that my accuser
Right.
has harmed me. I've tried to
Right.
report this person over the last 40 years, um, probably 5 times, starting when I was a kid.
Mm,
And all
mm,
that did was cause more trouble and make him be my mentor. Like
right.
they put us together in all of the things. So
Yeah.
the process for this, I've heard from fellow survivors, you've heard from fellow survivors, the bitterness that the majority of us hold about this process, we unfortunately inflict that on each other. You
Yeah.
know, it's unfortunate. It's happened. I can't tell you how many names I've been called just for saying, "Hey, here's what can we do?" Because my goal is to get a congressional oversight hearing
Yeah.
on this particular issue.
Right.
Um, this is a congressionally chartered youth group that has
Yep.
82,000 plus victims of childhood sexual assault, which is tantamount to the largest human trafficking ring in the world. And
Yep.
Congress is still going to charter it. I don't get that
Right.
unless Congress is compromised. and
Right.
have receipts for that, which we're not going to get into right now.
Right.
However, we have 82,000 voices, and how many have died since this has started, Curtis?
Right. Right.
I mean,
Too many. Reports are over 100 a month, and then maybe 10,000 plus total. It's hard to say because that's another thing that's not being reported. They do not tell us any updates. I know there's confidentiality on these claims and the claimant's privacy, but we should know um,
could it
stats that are
could it be
critical like
the
that.
could it be 20,000? Because that's the amount of claims that they haven't processed thus far.
Well, that is they are the recent report, which came out in June 1st, which is 4 days ago. They have determined 61,611 claims out of the 82,209, which does leave a gap of around 20,000. But the thing is there's so many, not just have passed away, but so many just said after a few years into it, they're just like, I'm out. This is just too much
Yes.
stress on my family, on being able to work and maintain their mental health, because of the way that it's to this day, it's just handled really inappropriately.
And
And the yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna, and like you said, the conflicts where I'm just going to say it, the opposition, I don't know where it's officially. I just know there's definitely evidence that insurers opposing attorney interests are coming into our Facebook groups, our Reddit groups, uh, whatever avenue they can to spread misinformation, intentional disinformation, and division, and it's horrible. And that's going to be investigated and need to be where we got some accountability for that's part of the fraud and malpractice situation that's very, very harmful. And people have quit. So, I'm going to say it's a considerable amount, but also the other factor that's unknown, unfortunately, and this is another part of legit 100% fraud, is like Slater Schulman. That's been in the media as of fall of last year, which they are having an investigation on their claims because they had people like right out of high school, early college age or whatever, just submitting claims that may have been somewhat duplicated or whatever. We don't know the details, but they have around, I think it's 12,000 claimants total, and they have around, who knows how many are part of those that are not being processed yet because they're being investigated. And the trust didn't tell us until like a year passed that there was any concerns.
Do you remember around 2024 when the court was trying to subpoena Andrew Van Arsdale and couldn't find where he was at because none of his offices that were listed on public website, his legal filings, it was either Montana or California, and they couldn't serve this man.
Right. It was,
And I bring
yeah,
him up because we're talking about fraud, and my first fraud claim to the trust was my experience with Andrew Van Arsdale. Oh, hi, Andrew, if you happen to be seeing this, fuck you. Um, sorry for you can edit that out,
you're
but I
you're not alone. It's up to you. You're not alone. That's probably the number one.
That's why
Yeah.
I reported him to the California bar for ethical violations because he removed me when I asked him to fire himself. He removed one of my email addresses from his update list. But for 8 months that he stayed on my case, my other email address would get the update. So he purposefully stopped updating his client, who he would refuse to recuse himself because I asked him to object to the $10,000 requirement for any victim to have to pay. I said that was the biggest insult any of you sons of bitches could ever come up with.
Yeah.
Go tell Epstein victim that paid
Right.
$10,000 to go after his estate. Fuck you.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and the fact that he didn't object to it is why I turned him into the Ethical Commission in California. They couldn't find him either to have a communication about the claim. And so when I him into the trust for fraud, I asked three simple questions. I said, how many claims did he represent? 19,000 and change. How many of those were signature only claims? And how many of them were early claims where was no proof involved, and it was over 75%. And I said, okay, cool. So that man had access to 75% of 19,000 people who he was able to vote yes on with an easy signature. And that was the margin that the insurance companies needed to get our vote because I voted no on the
Right. I
restructuring plan is what we're talking about.
right.
So
I rejected both rounds as well. Right.
it was a horrible plan. And the fact that I got a text message the night before from Rothweiler and Associates telling me to vote yes on this perfect plan that's the best we're going to get,
Right.
and they worked so hard for it, I got angry, dude. I went outside and started shooting shit.
Yep. Well, that's a
Um,
really red flag because they should not influence um, even people that weren't their claimants. They should not be telling them to accept this plan. I mean, it's up to the
yeah.
claimant. I also want to
So
mention. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, you're good. You're
I
good.
was just going to say, all of this is a lead up. This is probably going to be the longer version, but this is all a lead up to why it's so important for this call to action to have some legs. Because the U.S. trustee who oversees all of the trusts in the United States is trying to make sure that the BSA trust, which is the largest childhood sexual assault victims claim group in the United States or ever, they want to hear from us about our satisfaction with the interactions with the trust and attorneys who are supposedly communicating with the trust. I don't have an attorney, so all I'm hearing is from your people on your Facebook page, which is what is your Facebook page again?
Well, there's scoutaccountability.org. There's a few different Facebook groups because it depends. There's one just for public support and updates, people that want to follow what's going on for justice for the scouting survivors. And then there's Boy Scout Survivors group, which is a private where we can ask questions and share updates and stuff. But there's other Facebook groups, but they're all, again, it and Reddit groups, and they're just all, it's hard to, lack a better word, vet claimants and people because you want privacy and we don't want
Yeah.
to
I'm only in the private group, so
yeah, that's great because we don't want to have some. I've seen people have a public group open and they're like, their friends are like, hey, they're, they're finding out these posts. I'm like, well, because the group's private, public, and they're seeing
yep.
these posts. And that was really a bad thing for some people that weren't ready to discuss that and share with family and friends or something. But yeah, I appreciate that because there's just different, some people love or hate Facebook and we have TikTok. I'm on that. There's also Twitter X. Some people have different preferences. Some people aren't on social media at all and barely have emails. So we try to keep in contact with people as much as
Well,
possible.
a lot of these survivors are 60 plus and
Right,
don't
right,
go online and don't do anything. And I don't know if when's the last time you Googled news about the Boy Scouts or the
right,
bankruptcy or anything. There's been a blackout since damn near right at April the 19th of 2023. Like
right,
there's been three reporters that I could, Alex Wolf being one of them from Bloomberg, has
right,
been about the only reporter who's kept up with this issue accurately. And I think his last post about it was the speaking about the bad faith claims lawsuit for the trust against 83 insurers
right.
down in Texas.
Bloomberg does a good job. There's a few things in Wall Street Journal, and then I think it's like, is it Legal 360 or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, they do
Yep.
a good job on that, but that's unfortunately behind a paywall. Um, I will say we need to circle back besides like your website and the omniagentsolutions.com there's scouting settlement trust.com, which is the actual trust website. And they've got updates, and that doesn't, like you said, the news section doesn't update you and everything, but the scoutingsettlement.org. I don't know why I circled back on that because we did bring that up. But the thing
Well, we're
is,
talking about things in which to bring up to the trustee
right,
oversight. These are all kind of nitpicky things that you and I are bringing up and being critical about, but that's our job here. That's our role.
right. Well,
In your
we're survivors
situation, you
trying to
haven't even
figure it out.
signed. You haven't
Yeah.
even signed for your money yet, which you've already paid 20 grand out of pocket,
Right.
dang near going into survival mode, trying to come up with money so that you could get how much? How much did they tell you were going to get?
Right. Well, I'll share that Todd and I have released, Todd Grantham and myself had released our independent review option recommendation from our judge. I was awarded, or I should say, my recommendation was 2.5 million and Todd's was 3.5 million. I will say, regardless of that being, you know, it's symbolic because neither one of us have received a penny, and everybody involved in this, any kind of claim, we're looking at hopefully up to 10%, if that. But the thing is
Oh.
I have not. There's IROs are a little more. It's a mystery. I don't know how else to put it because all the matrix claims and the expedited claims, which were people that they didn't want to go. I think they went through a long process anyway, even though
For
it's called
$3,500.
expedited. Right, right.
For
And they said that
$3,500.
right. They said I'll just take $3,500. I don't want to go through much more of the, they're just happy to be heard, and but
If they were
uh
even real at all. And I'm not
thank
trying to
you.
discount anybody's voice or experience or pain that you're still going through. I'm not calling any scout or survivor or victim
Right,
fraudulent. I'm
right,
claiming that there was a noticeable amount of fraud on the attorney's parts
right.
that
But
shuffled us through this process into where we're at now, which is pennies on the
right,
dollar.
right. And
Pennies.
well, that's the thing is how did we say we were going to be paid in full, fair and equitable? And that's not the case again. Statute of limitations. IROs may or may not be paid differently than the matrix, because there was a thing saying a certain non-settling insurer amount would go 80% to the IROs versus that's not fair and equitable. It's not fair and equitable that we have to pay to be heard. Like you said, and some people don't have that chance because they don't have the money, or two, the attorney could front that as far as like, hey, we want to pay for this claim to be heard further with the independent review option.
Well,
But
that
there's
was that
also
was Andrew Van Arsdale's response to me when I asked him to object. I said, please, if we were texting and also in a hearing.
right,
And because he had just gotten his law license in 2018, he's never been through an appeal process. And my goal was to
right,
make sure he was preserving the record for the appeal. He failed to do that, and that's why I fired him. But his response was, my firm's going to take care of that. I said, what about all the pro se people? What about all the
right,
people in jail? What about folks who don't, uh, you know, want to even think about having to pay? You know
right.
how insulting that is, Andrew,
Yeah,
to have to pay for
yeah,
you to do your job?
and the number
Come,
it fluctuates for whatever reason, but their last report on June 1st was that there was 206 independent review options, and they come to a determined amount of the recommended award is what they call it, is 188 out of that, and that's out of 82,209 claims, around 200. I mean, that shows you how many people were not heard and had that chance. Uh and I will say the people that are right, right, right,
that's how much they earned from that.
that goes into the trust
Guys.
supposedly as well, right, exactly.
So wait,
And
wait,
I
wait,
will
wait, wait. So I'm getting your
sorry.
money.
That's part
So,
of the yeah,
bruh,
yeah.
that's
Well, okay, let
a
me let me
kick in the
actually let me
nuts.
let me actually clarify that. That goes into the trust because they're paying the judges, the retired judges that are doing the recommend. They get that money and the legal system, the attorneys are getting the money that they hundreds of millions of dollars is going into the network that's exploiting this whole, the judges make the trust judge is making 175,000 a month. You know what I'm saying? It's just really horrible.
Say
Just
that
many
one
different
more
layers.
time.
The trust judge in the settlement, it was clarified that that person would receive $175,000 a month. Oh,
Barbara Hauser.
yeah, at this current, I mean, that's who it is. I don't know if that changes or not, but I'm just not trying to say anything. But the thing is The fact is, though, it was supposed to be adjusted. So our salary, our not salary, our compensation was adjusted because of inflation. I was surprised they actually adjusted it, but nobody's heard
Yep.
anything if her 175 was also bumped up a percentage or two. You know what I mean? Over time.
That that does make sense. And here's something that
We
upset me
wouldn't know.
quite a bit because I got that email back in April of 2025 that said, I don't think I've received one this year. Um, the email said your base claim has been adjusted due to inflation of like 1.3 something percent.
Right,
And I was like,
right,
cool, let me do that math. All right, that's $130,000. I'm never even going to see the $130,000 that is the inflation amount of what my
right,
claim is.
right,
Because the trust is very clearly stated to me they are done making payments until
right.
now there's more court. Now there's a whole other, it doesn't matter of appeals. It is an ongoing wound
Yep,
that there is no salve, there is no band-aid that stays. This is a walking open wound
yep.
that keeps getting deeper and deeper and more bloody and gory as
Well,
time goes on because there's no communication about any of this. You and
right.
I are in speculation zone, and we're having to go to the original court documents that
Yep,
your attorney might have done a decent job of getting you to
right,
this point,
right.
but I,
We're,
I
we're
don't
gonna
know of
need, yeah, we're
anybody
gonna
that's
need a
having weekly town halls.
right. Yeah, right. The thing is we're gonna need a team of survivors to come forward, and then we'll talk about that call to action in a second here. But we're gonna need some experts that are bankruptcy experts and US working with US Congress. Eventually, we're going to have to get people like an attorney might have been an injury attorney and they got pulled into the bankruptcy and they don't know about bankruptcies or they did bankruptcies, but this bankruptcy is unlike any other. This is fraud and malpractice at unforeseen levels. The fact, I'll circle back on this and then continue. They bought back the insurance policies from like Chubb at 10 cents a dollar. So no wonder we're severely underfunded and maybe have 10 cents on a dollar of what we're going to be compensated for if we're lucky that much. Because right now it's
You
the
were
one
talking.
point, yep, it's 1.5 plus
Oh, go
3.2. So
ahead.
it's at 4.7. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That's 4.7
You
is
were
the
talking
most
about
anybody's received. Yep.
that is correct, and I have received that 4.7 myself.
Right.
Um, I because I didn't have an attorney, there were no attorney's fees, so I'm one of the few that has gotten the most money thus
Right.
far.
Right.
And I've owed myself $20,000 for the hosting of the website that we were talking about. Um, if I were to bill myself
Right.
for
All
my
your time.
representation in this
Right.
issue, I'm $250 an hour as an expert witness in cases. I'm in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and
Right.
I'm not being exaggerative of that.
Right.
The amount of time to read 13,000 documents over 6.5 years, you
Right.
and I are well into.
Right.
I'm around at least 8,000 hours in reading alone, and
Right.
that's just trying to decipher what's been filed. And I'm still, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm barely understanding bankruptcy land is a whole other animal than administrative court law, civil court law,
Right.
criminal court law. Like this is a quasi judicial entity that its only purpose is to deflect liable. Like if you look at the
Right.
Sackler case, what
Yeah.
victim, what addict got any money? Nobody, none of them got money. Counties, hospitals,
Right.
treatment facilities,
The
prisons,
states.
they all
Right.
sued Sackler, but
Right.
we didn't get anything from that.
Right.
And look at the protected parties list in our case. There's over 340,000 entities.
Right. Yeah.
So
The bankruptcy.
340,000 entities new.
Yeah. The bankruptcy court. There was a reform that is in play that we appealed and like third parties. We can't go after the churches or the schools or the entities that were BSA charters. At this time we're being said that they're protected under the bankruptcy plan of the Boy Scouts of America. So I'm like, I don't understand how that is, and they're saying that's not right going forward. But they changed that bankruptcy reform as our settlement was already kind of in play. It was bullshit. It should have been applicable to us. But those kind of things, it's just a matter of protecting the entity. The bankruptcy is a process to give the entity a chance, which I'm going to tell you, as you know, they never should have had to file bankruptcy. That's another thing that's fraud. They could
They
have
shouldn't be
used,
allowed to file.
well, they should, well, sexual abuse should never be a claim as part of a bankruptcy. We're not,
Right.
we didn't loan them money or give them contracting construction work or supplies or something. We were exploited and, sexually abused. But the thing is, they're using it as a way to keep them from going under. But the fact is they could have handled every one of her claims, done what happened, and had insurance pay, virtually unlimited insurance that they had. And they still could, they might have been where they need to sell assets more than they already have, but they ultimately, it's going to come around. But the bankruptcy wasn't needed. That was another fraud where they went to Delaware, set up a puppet entity account, no employees, no revenue, and so they could have better favorable situations in Delaware versus filing in Texas. But they didn't need to do that. They could have managed to survive. And I just want to say that uh, the whole process is victimization of the claimant for sexual abuse because again there's people that are orphaned from their attorney, they're not happy, and they go to the trust, and the trust won't help them because they have an attorney. There's people that have attorneys that are up to will be exposed like Slater Schulman. It's public, and there's more than them that have very questionable practices. The way that they're handling incompetence at the least. And then there's people that have passed away, and their families are finding out, like their wife or their child are going like, "Wow, we got something in the mail or my email from my dad or my husband that passed away. We didn't even know he was in the bankruptcy." And those estates, that's one thing we do want to mention, is trying to figure out for these claimants to have an estate or some trust or something, so that if their claim is far enough along that they could get this award, that they don't lose that for their family or their benefactors. It's just horrible that that's happening.
Yeah, and it's almost as a veteran, we have a saying that we're cheaper dead, and I believe that the insurance companies are playing that tactic in this situation. And one of the main things that um, I want to emphasize on why this call to action is potentially so important is because there's a bad faith lawsuit going on down in Texas where Barbara Hauser, the trustee over our BSA trust, is suing 83 insurance companies for bad faith claims because they never had any intentions of allowing the claims that we're creating are making to be paid. And that's evident because of the lack of funding. Because, like you said, there were enough policies where we all had coverage.
Right.
There was not a single council that was allowed to operate. The one thing you had to have was an insurance policy. However, the reason that the bad faith lawsuit is about to be settled is because I'm holding the trust accountable in writing several times, asking where our original claims of abuse are and do they have access to them? And if they don't, then how do we have an accurate baseline of any of these things? Because this other fraud in our bankruptcy relies on the claimant to come forward. So if an abuser admits that they did something, that doesn't count. The victim has to come forward. Now, let's say we're dealing with things going all the way back to the, mid 40s and 50s and 60s. Those folks have passed, but their
A lot.
families were destroyed as well.
Right.
So the insurance companies have really narrowed down to a such a small range that there was never it's so obvious that they had such bad faith that they rigged this entire process for us not to get paid. The trustee is suing them with proof. They've just sealed it back in May, the case. But I'm asking Miss Hauser, if you don't have these original claims, where were they, and why was it insurance policy to mail those original claims of abuse to Irving, Texas? And where were those original claims during this bankruptcy process? There was a scout, a fellow pro se member, who made a filing. I'm not going to use his name on here, but you know who you are. Um, that basically said the CFO of the BSA rented a warehouse, three warehouses down from where all their files were stored in Irving, Texas, and stored all of our original claims there during this process. He went and got hired a private investigator. The receipts, he filed this in open court. Where was it? Where was an investigation by the FBI or U.S. Marshals or the Department of Justice or anybody if the goal wasn't to hide the amount? So we don't have an accurate baseline. I'm sorry for getting on a diatribe about this, but it's super
It's
important to
well,
me
yeah. There's so
because
many
I'm
layers.
being
Yeah.
denied $1.3 million because my abuser who harmed over 16 people, kids and scouts, they're not. The trust is telling me because I'm pro se, they don't have a right. They don't have the ability to give me privileged information, which is his abuse count.
Right.
What in the literal fuck are you talking
Right.
about?
Right. It's just another.
Sorry,
Yeah. Well, people need to
it's
know this
hurtful
because, yeah.
because it was part of the plan, bro. I said no because the plan was faulty.
Right.
I read it several times before I
Right.
said that. I listened to Michael
Right.
Johnson, who was, a lead investigator in Plano, Texas, who
Right.
was on our TCC, who was essentially saying, this doesn't protect kids going forward. This
Right.
plan, there's nothing about protecting future kids in this thing. And they had to add addendums to it, if memory serves correctly, to add more protections for kids because
Right.
there was one guy, one scout, who got accused. He hadn't cleared his name yet, but he still went to jamborees. He bragged
Right.
about it. Yeah, I cleared
Right.
my name, but the scouts let me go and be a scoutmaster while I was being accused and being investigated. That man,
Right.
I didn't make that up. That's his
Right.
story. But
Yeah,
that's
there's a lot of examples that are like that. And Michael Johnson he's a whistleblower. He's a great, he was I get the title confused sometimes, but like youth protection director. I need to iron that down a little better. But he was in a position that he was trying to help from the inside, and then he stepped out when the bankruptcy started to escalate because he realized they weren't sincerely trying to change and help us. Um, and he was in the Netflix documentary Scouts Honor, really, really great documentary. That I do want to do we'll do these documentaries and do a panel discussion, like a movie review or something, to help people know what to share what our thoughts are on those things. Sorry to get on a tangent there, but I will say that one thing else that bothers a lot of claimants, besides the being exploited and underfunded and not 6+ years not getting but 4.7%, not sure we're going to get much more. It could be, there should be one more payment, but it might not be anything significant. But it's just the fact that nothing's changed. There's still abuse happening after. There's children being sexually abused and claimants uh, where somebody is being arrested and convicted after the bankruptcy was filed February 18th, 2020. So that stuff, basically nothing has changed to protect children. Children are still being sexually abused. The only thing that we think that's significant that's changed is they changed their name from Boy Scouts of America to Scouting America. And that wasn't even
but where'd
because the
their
boy.
equity go? Where
Right.
the,
And yeah, and that wasn't because of the bankruptcy. They changed it because market conditions. They wanted to be more open to girls, etc. But instead of Boy Scouts, they wanted to be Scouting America. But
still sounds
um,
creepy as fuck.
well, even Boy Scouts is weird to me when I was a kid. I hate to be, when I was 12 years old, I was 11 actually when I first started. I'm thinking Boy Scouts sounds like you're out looking around for boys, which was what was going on with
Why
the
did it go from two
Scoutmasters.
fingers to three fingers, guys? Huh?
Yes,
Come
yes.
on.
It's
Come
there's
on.
so many, yeah, there's so many little innuendos,
Ugh.
you know, and I can go on with how that as a kid you're joking about it because you don't know what to think of how crazy stuff is. But the thing is nothing's changed in the sense the people, you know, the new CEO that wasn't a result of the bankruptcy. There was not a change of the organization to their preventive protection nothing's really significantly changed since like the 80s. So Lee, if you want to, I'll share. There's three independent review options claimants, sorry, that are in my Boy Scout troop. Luckily, all three of us had been able to get the uh, sorry, I'm losing my mind. We're able to be heard through an independent review option. Again, it's not a court, no trial, a jury trial or whatever, but at least it was further, you know, depositions and stuff like that. But my Boy Scout date, I started in 1981, and I was up until like 15 years old. That was like 11. I thought it was 12, but according to the rousters, information that the judge was researching and everything. It was from 81 to 85, and I was 11 to 15 years old. And like I said, three of us were in my troop. My perpetrator was arrested twice after we had moved on, and it was he was continuing to abuse outside of the Boy Scouts, but he was a known problem before. So it's a lot of red flags and a lot of things that they don't. I'll share one last thing, Lee, and I'll let you go. They don't
Is this
come.
Louisiana? Was this in Louisiana?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I was my situation, more than one of us went to Arkansas for camping and canoeing, but I also went to Texas because the Scoutmaster had family, right? And that's where my abuse happened as well. Where
Did y'all go to the Buffalo River in Arkansas?
is that the Ozarks? I think it's Buffalo.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the Buffalo
Yeah.
River. Why is it?
Yep.
Why was that rape camp?
I know, man. It's definitely a destination. And anyway, the thing is we were wearing our uniforms, you know, so it was a scouting, you know,
Yep,
there was
same.
merit badges, camping, canoeing. So it was a different state. Mine was Arkansas, Louisiana was where the troop was, then Texas. That's where we did some like painting or helping with homes and you know good deed kind of merit badge things. But
Yeah.
did you want to say is it
I
about
had
your
Arkansas.
trooper?
So the reason I'm mentioning state is because it matters to the statute of limitations that the trust used to determine these accounts. I had
Right,
victimization in four states, and only Arkansas is listed on my payout and my matrix claim. But I remember specifically reading that we were going to get different claims for each state when this all led up because I was like, okay, I had four states happen. My thinking is you're going to have one in Arkansas. Colorado doesn't have a statute of limitations, so I should have two. Texas does, so I should have two claims. Texas and um, uh, New Mexico that are statute of limitation limited, but at least I can go after my abuser in those jurisdictions.
right,
And so that's why I was asking. I think it's
right,
important to mention where our abuse happened and
right,
if accurate reporting or accurate reflection of our claim showed up in the matrix, which it didn't in mine because
right,
the abuser harmed more than five people, and he abused me in four states.
right.
I don't understand how that can disappear.
Yeah,
Again, still,
yeah, the system wasn't built. They didn't. They wanted to. They wanted to minimize everything they could, their liability and the amount that they should have paid. It worked against us. My IRO was for one state in Louisiana. Like I said, Todd Grantham and I, his was 3.5 million, mine was 2.5 million, but that's because Louisiana had bad case history because they were settled out of court. So it's very low compared to what it would have been in other states that are open and had they took sexual abuse seriously. Louisiana has the Catholic Church, I'll just say it that way, have fought that forever. In fact, I fought that I had until I was 19 years old, 1 year statute of limitations to report, and then it went up a little bit until I was like 48 because it was 30 years after you're 18. And that's when I started going into looking into, I only had like a year and a half until I was 48. And I started looking at stuff, desperately, like, man, my time, my clock is ticking. And then I found out, like, okay, I'm going to start working on this with an attorney, and then the bankruptcy, because of a collective group of us trying to fight, made the bankruptcy happen. But I don't know what your statute of limitations situations were, but it should have been federal. It should not have been based on one state because it was more than one state for both of us. So,
This is a federal organization, a
right,
congressionally chartered
right,
youth organization that has the worst reputation for childhood sexual assault predators
yep,
because they knew there's 9,000, over
right,
9,000 known predators, but
yep,
then there's even more because those are just the ones that they put on a list for
right,
involuntary action, or they're no
right,
longer able to volunteer.
right,
We call those the perversion files.
right,
Um, and it's a sad thing because after I went through this whole thing, I opened up the Department of Justice Epstein's list
right,
and saw how our our structure for our trust was mirrored after the 1953 trust, which Jeffrey Epstein set up. And he knew that there was going to be a victims compensation fund needed. And he set that up so that survivors could get paid from his estate depending on how much harm he had done to them and where. So our
right,
trust was structured after the Epstein Estate Victims Program and the Epstein Estate Victims Fund, and the amount of attorneys that had some kind of correlating nexus to that, and I want to call them Epstein class attorneys.
yep, yep,
They were handlers for our case. They worked hand in hand with the insurance companies to guide
yep,
them on all of these peculiarities. Landmines is what they call them. You don't want to step on this landmine because it's going to cost, yada, yada, yada.
right,
And
right,
so the amount of handling that our case specifically, and we got to look at the time frame. Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019, supposedly, or you started to sue around that same time, which led to
mhm,
the bankruptcy itself. But
right,
there's a nexus here that's super important because you were talking about statute of limitations. Most men on paper in science do not speak about their abuse until their mid 40s.
right.
We're not able, mature
It's
enough to speak about our and this 1 in 6 is not an accurate number. It's more
right,
like 1 in 3. After I've had this experience, people have come up to me and pulled me aside because I'm open and public about this issue because I want to raise awareness. They pull me aside and say, "Hey, I've never told anybody this, but that happened to me too, and you're not alone." And we're
right,
talking
right.
about old men with fishing, like they're out fishing, and
Yep,
they ask me why I'm upset or what's going on or why are you in a tent? Because I've been homeless I was homeless for 4.5 years. I've been in a place for the last 6 months because it's so crucial. This point in which we're at has been so crucial. I
right,
had to stay on top of it. This was the appeals portion, yada yada. But people would
right.
come up to me and empathize and say,
Yep,
"You have no idea how important it is for me to hear your voice
right.
because I can't say it on my own yet.
Yep,
But here I am, and now I'm saying it." And we've sat there and cried for 30 minutes because
yep,
somebody's uncle or uh, preacher.
yep,
Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of clergy in these
yep,
perversion files. And if it's not clergy, it's police or military or like
yep,
there isn't a class that isn't occupied in these perversion
right,
files, and it's almost anybody with affluence, enough authority to be able
right,
to get you alone.
Right.
scare you into not saying something and touching your butt. And
Right.
and for whatever reason they get off on that. And this is the systematic plague,
Right.
epidemic that
Right.
we have throughout the country. And I hope people are seeing it now because of the Epstein survivors. They have a decent platform right now. But I want to remind folks that there might be 1,000 of them, the females that are, well, they're actually male and female. I shouldn't limit
That's
it to
true.
that.
That's
I
true.
apologize.
Over a
Um,
thousand, male and female, mostly female, but yeah, there's males in there too. Yeah.
there
I
were
spoke,
men
yeah,
and
it's, they're trying to
there
speak
were
out. Yeah.
boys. There were men
Right.
and boys, but there were boys
Yeah.
in the in the Epstein files, but there were 1,000 of them. I'm not trying to belittle or diminish their
Right.
experience is
Right.
all horrible, but there's 82,000 of
Right.
us. 62,000 have been verified.
Right.
So we're 20 might be where incarcerated, the give ups, the
Pass
abandoned,
away, man. Yeah.
they could have never gotten their ballot. They could
That-
have
right.
gotten pissed off at their attorney and just said F the whole thing, and the attorneys
That's,
can't do
I
anything
know
about it.
many. Yep.
Yep. So, this is to me not just because I'm in it or I'm egotistical about this and I have to, make it about me. As a survivor of this institutionalization of getting away with sin or
Right.
paying for sin, like I can just pay my way out of this.
Right.
That is the essence of why we have been re-victimized in this process, is that they think that money solves this sin. And this is a court issue. This should have
Right.
been, as soon as there was a report of abuse, instead of it being mailed to the company that is, leading these volunteers, they should have sent it to the local jurisdiction of offense and had a claim made immediately. That's the proper criminal procedure to satisfy the chain of evidence. Rape kits and everything needs to happen in the jurisdiction that the offense happened in. So we're talking about insurance company policy removing our rights from the very beginning, which is the bad faith.
Before the bankruptcy was even filed, there was orchestrated issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, Lee, I will say this. I was just looking. We're at about an hour. I do want to say that your call to action post that you had on your website, I want to just cover that briefly. But we're going to do a shorter, like, hey, urgent call to
Okay.
action overview video. But the idea, and I'll let you share what you want. But the idea is just trying to say, these are the issues that the new U.S. trustee wanted to point out. And I've got it here, unless you want to read that instead. But the other thing is, like, what are the steps that we could do? And, we could just be real brief here, but put a link on it on this video, but also do a video that's, hey, look, this is what we want to do to get people to reach out and share their concerns, the bad things about their experience.
So I had seen on your Facebook page, the private one, a post about a new trustee, and I was hoping that it was Barbara Hauser had. I'm
Right.
not gonna
That
I'm not
trust,
gonna
the
say
judge
what a
trust. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Trust judge. Yeah. Yeah.
this is a U.S. trustee, which is the overseers of all of the trusts out there. They make sure trusts are following the rules according to my limited knowledge on this group. So what I read in your post, the link went to your website where you have a repository of information that you're trying to make public outside of OmniDocs as a second set of eyes on something that's hidden almost. Um, so when I read it, what struck me in the title is that the U.S. Trust is requiring something in writing by June 15th, which is 10 days from today, um, to get information from scouts about how the trust has not communicated with us, hasn't given us any details about a timeline or a runway of this payment schedule. There is no response when you call, there's no response when you email, unless, and here's some advice for anybody who's trying to communicate with the trust, cite the plan. Whatever question you have, if you haven't read the plan that formed the trust, that gives them instructions, that gives them the shell of which they are, and the trust's instructions, because although they're limited, every blue link on there is necessary to read in their information. You've got to click on each link and follow through with each document. So when I say that, when you're emailing the trust, especially if you have an attorney, they're not going to respond to you. They're going to tell you go through your attorney. If you forward them emails that have gone unanswered to your attorney, they will respond to you. They're not they're not horrible people. They're super busy and they're limited to what they can actually do. And if
Right.
you read what they're required to do, they will fulfill, especially if you cite it, your request. There's been a lot of people recently, and this is why the U.S. trustee is so concerned, where there's 20,000. How many of those people haven't been paid yet, Curtis? 20,000?
Well, they say that the total amount of questionnaires that they received are in the 64,000 range. So there is a gap between the 82,000 originally in the settlement to the 64,318 questionnaires that they're processing, which they've done
Right, but there's
61,
only been 40,000 payments.
40
40,000.
43,206 that have actually received a disbursement.
Okay, so we're talking about 20,000 victims after 6.5 years have not received a single penny. They're reaching out
Right,
to their attorneys going, I have no liens.
right,
Liens were never even mentioned when we had a vote or anything.
right.
And I think they brought it up because we were asking about healthcare. Where are y'all even gonna like? Do you even care that I have a broken asshole since I was 8 years old? No, you don't.
They don't care.
They
Yeah.
wanted they
But
wanted to
but
charge us.
also, right. I'm sorry, but also it's because it's so late in the game. Why didn't they do this all along? Or they did do something earlier and they're trying to redo it now. It's horrible. Yeah. I'm
The
sorry to
the
interrupt.
way that the trust has deployed their directives has been borderline criminal, fraudulent and criminal. So the U.S. trustee is asking to hear our side of this. What issues have we had with the trust? And if you can provide proof of that, they want to see it so that they can address the trust. And they're requiring the trust to say something in writing by the 15th. Okay. More
Right.
than likely, because today's Friday, the insurance company attorneys are going to file an objection to that filing, saying that it's whatever. They're going to come up with an excuse of why the trust isn't required to answer to the U.S. trustee in writing. They're going to say this is a private matter because the Texas bad faith claims looks like they're settling. The insurance companies are finally capitulating and
Right.
saying, you're right. This is bad faith. The longer we wait, the more we're going to have to pay if we just don't, if we settle now, we're going to save probably $20 billion because they
Right.
owe the trustee, Barbara Hauser went on record in the Luan claimants case to say the trust owes $20 billion to the creditors. They only have 6.66 billion right now with insurance and real estate or assets.
Right.
We've only seen 800 million of it. Was that
Right. Right.
around the
They're
right number?
right.
And
Yeah. So
attorneys
the
have already received. Um, I'm sure we're over their mark now, but before February, attorneys had received around $380 million more than any survivor.
oh, easily. The thing is the expense just to get the bankruptcy to the point of where it was approved was already in the hundreds of millions. The trust running the settlement has surpassed $100 million in expenses. The judge again is making 175,000 a month, and some people that have been horribly abused won't even receive ultimately as much as she does in 1 month. they might not receive it that much in their full claim. A lot of people, unfortunately.
So all these
Um,
people who've never been harmed are
right,
going to get more money than the people who were harmed. And I think that's the travesty that we're all in
right.
right now. And it's kind of like us veterans who realize the blind patriotism that we signed up for wasn't worth it. Like I didn't know I was going to go work for Israel or whatever. Um,
Right, that situation, yeah, exactly. I mean, because it's just further exploitation and just not any concern for the people that were sexually abused as children. So
so our
there,
civil rights were
I'll
violated along with this.
right, and we'll have to follow up with very focused like this civil right and here's what happened and little follow up with clips and videos to cover those things. But I'll just say real quickly because you covered it, but in general. One, future claimants are jumping in line ahead of us because we've been through this for 6 years. You mentioned that earlier, but they may have a future claimant come in and then they're going to be, not having to wait that
Fast
six
tracked.
years.
They're going to be
Right.
fast
Thank
tracked to
you.
the
That's
end
the word.
process.
Yeah. The second thing is, the future claims disputes, that's problematic. The
They don't
healthcare
even know the
liens, like you're
number though,
saying.
right?
No, no. That in the court hearing, they we're talking about a 22-day court hearing, and this was before the settlement was approved. It was like I'm trying to think of my timeline, what year that was. But anyway, the thing is they were saying
23.
it, it
It
was
was
it
23.
was going to be potentially 11,000 future claimants. I mean, they knew they had a problem. Yeah, that would come up. And then, of course, the 4.7% that's maximum so already paid 3.2 plus the 1.5 in disbursements. That's a fraction of what was promised is being paid in full or substantially. There's delays, costs, re-victimization, and the last thing that was pointed out by the trust is that the trust is not responding to people that have a lot of concerns. That you covered that very well. I just wanted to go through the list. But the other thing is now what do we do? What options do claimants, as a survivor, what do we need to do? And we'll have this posted, but you can email the trust, you can call the trust office, you can mail a written letter, send it in, and file a letter directly with the court, contact our U.S. senators and representatives, and of course share this with other survivors. Because what we want is a lot of more. There are a lot of people, and I know some people that are doing well. Like Lee shared how you're putting concerns in. We just need everybody to know how to be heard and how to be, like these are very serious concerns that ultimately it's going to be where there's liability on a legal sense that there's fraud and situations that are red flags. Um, but we're just looking to have this handled the way it should be and be compensated. I mean, because and protect children and hold the Boy Scouts accountable.
And I think that is so there this is a very rare. I've asked a couple of my attorney friends, and they're like, I haven't seen a U.S. attorney have to step in a case except for very serious reasons.
Right.
And
It's
my
escalating.
assumption is this because the trust has done such a poor job, because it was planned to be such a poor job, this is all planned futility. Um, the goal is to get us to give up, quit, die, um, get so frustrated with it where we're just like whatever. Um, there have been issues. I think the majority of the survivors' issues are there hasn't been enough communication with their attorneys, and they blame the trust for that when the trust is very clear. You have to go through your attorney. They have rules that they have to follow, legal process,
Right.
to where if you have a representative, they represent you. That's the only person that the trust can communicate with unless you can't communicate with your attorney. So the U.S. trustee is wanting to know what is the problem here. And I think that they're going to find this is an attorney issue, has been an attorney issue, and is clearly conflated by the lack of response to the average claimant from the trust because of this caveat of I can only talk to your attorney unless very few things, very few situations. One of them is you can prove that your attorney is not responding, that your attorney is delaying your payout by not communicating with you. You can prove that you filled out your information, like your claims or your lien information paperwork. And there was one other thing. It was two issues that I had to fill out, and I didn't get it right. Like it took me literally 5 times filling this out to choose which option I wanted.
Yeah.
It was A through C or
It's
whatever, and I'm sorry that I'm not able
it's a
to
process.
quote
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
I messed it up, and I represented myself, and I'm fairly um, proficient with a computer, but these forms are um, they're as somebody who builds forms online, you
Right.
can make the sections much easier to where you don't have to sign something up here, go
Right.
down, and then sign your name lower next to that
Right.
thing because those two things should be together.
Right.
Um, so with that said, the U.S. trustee is trying to figure out where this gap in communication is coming because they're online and they're probably monitoring some of our social media and seeing
Oh
that we
yeah.
have an issue. And if there's 20,000 people, which is, that's one third of the
That's true.
identified claims that have
Right.
not received a single penny yet. And the US trustee's job is to make sure the trust is doing their job. How are we at June of 2026 when the trust was formed, April the 19th, 2023.
Right.
And we're 3 years down the road, and
Right.
victims who were
Right.
childhood victims of sexual assault by rapists in a Boy Scout uniform
Right.
still have not heard from their attorney when or if they're going to get anything.
Right.
And all of this is new. The liens, the how we're going to proceed forward, all of this stuff is brand new roadblocks to
Right.
the end goal of can I stop thinking about this bullshit?
Right.
Can I just
And
be done with this?
right. And
The
there's
answer is no.
attorneys, right. And right, exactly. And there's attorneys that are trying to do the best they can, but the system and the broken part of it, they may feel defeated or they may feel like maybe they only have 100 or 1,000 claimants versus the ones that have 18,000, 12,000, which have the balance of power and how they're wanting to just get this done and over with. The other attorneys are like, well, let's keep fighting for, the more value for our claimants. That
There's some
they've
attorneys who are
right,
updating their clients about this trustee,
right,
asking to hear from them. You would think those are good attorneys. They're like, hey
right,
guys, we want your voice to be heard.
right,
We need you to, just like we did whenever the attorneys, the coalition, I don't think the court wanted us to write in at all. The
right,
coalition came up with an idea back before we were voting of what do you want the judge to hear?
right,
They don't believe that there are the numbers that they're there because we've been told from the insurance company side that we're all fraudulent from day one.
right. They didn't think that there was that many of us existing. Exactly.
Correct. And
It,
so
right.
when we rode in, there was a flood and I say
Yeah.
flood, 200 is not bad to get, people writing in a week's time frame. There were at least 200 um, letters to the judge. Mine was labeled or titled The Cost of Innocence, if
Right.
anybody ever comes across it back in the day. And I want to say this was 2022 when I wrote this, might have been 21. Anyhow, if we have a voice, the insurance companies lose in their
Right.
goal to silence us. This whole thing
Exactly.
was how many numbers do we have, and can we get them to go away with a signature?
Right.
And
Exactly.
they were kind of right in a whole lot of things, but I don't think they expected the resilience of a Boy Scout.
Thank you. Yeah, because
'Cause
for that many to respond within a week was great, but I think collectively, and I'm going to start. We're going to release these letters because of how you're being helpful also with in many ways to get this data. Uh, I think the number was reported to be north of 1,000, above 1,000
There were. There
collectively.
were.
So we're going to get these out. It'll be redacted, and I'm hoping there's so many of them that said I filed, and they want to come public, and then add to what their experience has been since that. They want to add like, hey, this is how I've been further harmed. But think about that when you have 1,000, if it's a few hundred or 1,000 that have been waiting for a bankruptcy to be heard and for them to share, it's significant because so many don't. That's the reality. So,
Well, and I
well,
and so I haven't written my letter yet, and I want to go back to this call to action a
right,
little
for the
bit
U.S.
since this is
trustee,
the
right?
long
You did
form,
you did
right?
a letter originally, right?
I did write a letter, but this is in reference to the call to action that has a
Thank you.
sample letter in it.
Yep.
I want to touch on who all should get a copy of that
Right.
because, uh, to my understanding, if you have an attorney, only your attorney can file into the court on your behalf.
Okay.
And I say that because everybody has a right to write the judge. Okay,
Right.
you us survivors have a tendency to want to be heard, and we extrapolate into a big long story that's 40 years to tell.
A lot. Yeah.
We need to be precise in this issue and stick with not the abuse, but the re-abuse of the process that the trust was supposed to oversee. We're not supposed to get into the bankruptcy itself. This is strictly, from my limited understanding of the document, the motion that was filed, the U.S. trustee is only looking for our account of
Right.
our communications or lack thereof with the trust. And so that sample letter, I would ask that it's in a PDF form right now. I need to make it into a Word doc, and I'm actually working on a form. But anyhow, if you if you look at the bullet points and can stick to them and be concise so
Right.
that it's not a 6-page letter,
Right.
and we don't diatribe about um, reherding, and we just stick to the system and its process of the trust period, but we send that to our representatives, our Congress people. I'm going to send my copy to Thomas Massey because his office is super responsive,
That's great.
especially to survivors. I'm going to carbon copy it and send it to the Attorney General of Texas, just because I like giving those guys a good kick in the nuts every chance I can get.
Great.
Um, so sticking to what the motion itself is
Right.
requesting, I think is key. And then how to send it would be asking your attorney, I want this to be filed on the record in this.
Perfect.
So this is the
Perfect.
second bankruptcy docket that we're in now. It won't go to the trust, or well, I take that back. You can send a copy to the trust to let them
Right.
know, which is what you do in court. You give a copy to both sides. But I have on there sending a copy to the trust's counsel as well as the trust itself, so that
Right.
you know that at least an attorney for them got a copy because it's equal filing. You've got to
Perfect.
notify both sides for it to be admissible in court.
Right.
Go over this with your attorney. If you do not hear from your attorney between now and the 15th, which is a really big likelihood, follow the prompts of sending it to as many people as possible, but the goal is to send it to the actual bankruptcy court and the USD's office so that the court can file it on the record. It'll be redacted or sealed, probably sealed, but the US that can you see me?
You
I'm
just
getting a
broke up
message
the
that's saying
the
I'm
U.S.
unstable.
what? Yeah, you just said the U.S. did
The
what?
U.S. trustee
Okay.
is able to see that we are also notifying other parties. And it's just an account of how long the trust has been going,
Right.
how you didn't hear from them, and what did you ask them. Uh, and we are owed. multi-millions of dollars, and we have a right, like I'm a street motherfucker. If somebody owe me this much money on the street, there are repercussions that I could go through legally to get them to pay me. I could put a lien on their property. I could put an IRS fraud lien on them, which I'm contemplating doing in this scenario because
Right.
I've been fraudulently stolen from
Right.
because the trust won't tell me how many abuser or how many kids my abuser abused. That's
Right.
ridiculous. So
That's a big
anyway, sorry
factor.
for
That
diatribing. Like,
was a significant
all of
factor, and
these
some people
things,
don't know. Yeah.
all of these things I have a right to tell
Right.
the U.S. trustee about because I have asked the trust these questions and I have it in writing. I'm just going to forward them all of my emails.
Listen, this has been nonstop, really good flow of information and good, uh, this is the first, lack of a better word, video or podcast that we've done. Most of our conversation, like vast majority has just been online, messaging and stuff. So this is great that we've been able to talk so much and share. But what I want to do is let's get this. I'll wrap up this episode, if we want to
Yep.
call it that. Put it online ASAP. Hopefully, it'll be this evening. I just got technical things around the schedule that I'm about to wrap up and address with somebody else. But that I got to help them with something. Their perpetrator is going to court next week, and anyway, it's going to be coming out soon too. That's active, so I'll talk to you about that
Wow.
later. But so that's pending because of the timeline on that being next week. But the thing is, we want to get it out by Monday. But the thing is you and I can follow up and do a short call to action video, uh, and share your article and anything else that we'll be sharing to get people to know what to submit and stuff. So, man, I do appreciate it. If unless there's anything else, we can just wrap this episode
I mean,
up and
there's so much, but
right,
we're trying to
right,
keep it concentrated to this one important reach out. I want to elaborate on how important it is not to go into so much detail about
right,
our case
right,
versus
right.
what we haven't been able to get from the trust. And I
Right. It's
think,
got to focus on their accountability, what they're not
yep.
doing right, what they need to fix about being paid in full if they investigate, etc. All right. Sorry to keep going, but we'll call this a wrap and we'll
Okay.
talk much more to cover later for sure. Thank you.